Hello, and welcome to another episode of Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom, the show where we explore the tiny things inside us that somehow end up running the entire show. I'm Ethan Foster, your ever-curious observer of the human condition, especially when that condition includes interesting bacteria.
And I'm Alara Sky, here to drop clever one-liners and microbiome facts in equal measure. Welcome, everyone. We're about to prove that what happens in your mouth definitely doesn't stay in your mouth.
That sounds suspiciously like a tagline for a questionable horror movie, Alara. Attack of the Microbes, they came from the mouth.
And in this episode, their sequel, Microbes March on the Brain. But let's stay rational. We're talking about how the oral microbiome can influence cognitive health and even the risk of dementia.
Quite a leap from brush your teeth or you'll get a cavity to brush your teeth or risk forgetting to feed your cat. I assume there's some actual science behind it.
Absolutely. It turns out that the mouth is sort of a microbial Grand Central Station, with trains of bacteria making pit stops in every nook and cranny. Certain ones can benefit brain function, others, not so much.
So let's set the stage. A recent discussion by Dr. Mercola highlights a study that zeroed in on the connection between oral bacteria, nitric oxide production, and the risk of cognitive decline. Sounds like the kind of science that proves flossing could be your new memory booster.
Because if there's one thing we all want, it's to be able to remember exactly how many times we never flossed. But jokes aside, the study looked specifically at individuals over 50, checking saliva samples and seeing how different bacteria levels correlated with brain performance.
So it's not just about whether you have morning breath. It's which microbes are having a little block party in your mouth. Some are beneficial, like Neisseria and Haemophilus. Others, like Prevotella intermedia, raise red flags.
Researchers found that high levels of Prevotella intermedia often showed up in people with early cognitive impairment. Meanwhile, folks with more Neisseria and Haemophilus seem to be sharper. Mentally, that is, not dentally.
I like the idea of beneficial bacteria being the mouth's cool neighbors who keep the troublemakers away. But how do these microscopic guardians help our brains?
By producing nitric oxide, or NO. Think of it like the traffic cop that keeps blood flowing smoothly. When good oral bacteria process the nitrates we eat, especially from vegetables, this helps produce nitric oxide. The more NO, the better our blood vessels can do their job, delivering oxygen-rich blood all the way to our brains.
So, if I chomp on a stack of nitrate-rich leafy greens, I might be giving my good bacteria something to do besides complain about sugar.
Exactly. Spinach, arugula, beets, these are like VIP passes to the nitric oxide club. The beneficial microbes convert the nitrates in those veggies to nitrite, which eventually becomes nitric oxide. It's basically a chemical handshake that says, hey, let's keep that brain well perfused.
Now, let's talk about the APOE4 gene, because it's been linked with a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. It also appears to correlate with an imbalance in these oral bacteria. How does that gene make the mouth so special?
Special in the sense that it apparently invites more Prevotella intermedia to the party. Research shows that APOE4 carriers have lower levels of Neisseria and higher levels of Prevotella. It's a bacterial mismatch that could contribute to inflammation and, in the long run, brain issues.
So, the gene sets the stage for trouble, and the bacteria rush in, forming a perfect storm. Then, presumably, your blood-brain barrier could be compromised by chronic inflammation?
Precisely. The blood-brain barrier is supposed to be like a VIP bouncer who keeps the wrong crowd out of your brain's exclusive club. If that bouncer gets lax, or if inflammation wears him down, bacterial troublemakers can waltz into the party, cause neural chaos, and speed up cognitive decline.
I'm picturing gum disease bacteria sneaking through the ropes and onto the red carpet of my hippocampus. Not an award ceremony I want to host.
Especially not one where the winners of the evening are inflammation and memory loss. But there's hope. We have quite a bit of control over which bacteria thrive in our mouths.
That brings us to the million-dollar question. How do we maintain an oral environment that fosters beneficial bacteria and keeps the baddies in check?
Let's start with the obvious. Ditch excessive sugar. Harmful bacteria love sugar. It's their go-to fuel. That's why it's so easy to tip the microbiome scale toward them with processed sweets and sodas.
We all get it. Sugar is basically like sending out VIP invites to the worst crowd possible. But what else can we do besides quietly sob while passing the donut box?
Embrace nitrate-rich veggies, as we mentioned. For me, that means lots of green smoothies or giant salads. When you consume those nitrates, you're feeding the bacteria that produce nitric oxide. More nitric oxide, better blood flow, calmer inflammation, and happier neurons.
I've also heard a big no-no is antibacterial mouthwash. Some folks are in the habit of swishing that stuff multiple times a day, but it kills both good and bad bacteria indiscriminately.
Exactly. When a product brags about zapping 99.9% of mouth germs, it's not exactly sending an engraved apology to the good germs. Those beneficial microbes are collateral damage. And once they're gone, you lose that nitric oxide production pipeline.
So, we're basically stuck with mouthwash that murders the helpful guys. Plus, we're kissing our nitrate conversion goodbye. Bummer. Let's talk about a less lethal approach, oil pulling.
Oil pulling is interesting. It's an ancient practice where you swish around oil, often coconut oil, in your mouth for about 20 minutes. It's said to pull out bacteria from between teeth and hard-to-reach spots like a gentle magnet for pathogens.
Let me see if I've got that. The idea is to push the oil in and out through your teeth so it captures lurking bacteria. Then you spit it all out. It's not a gargle, right?
Correct. It's not about gargling in the back of your throat. You just let the oil flow across every nook and cranny. After 20 minutes, the oil has thickened with the trapped bacteria, and you spit it out, preferably not in your sink so you don't clog your pipes.
Ah, yes. The joys of a plumbing emergency because your 20-minute swirl of coconut oil turns solid. But for the sake of oral health, that's a minor inconvenience.
Exactly. And coconut oil has mild antibacterial properties. It's not a nuclear bomb like some mouthwashes, so beneficial bacteria won't suffer nearly as much collateral damage.
What about that final step some folks mention? Rinsing with a baking soda solution to alkalize the mouth?
Yes. Bacteria that cause trouble often thrive in an acidic environment. Rinsing with a mild baking soda solution can help shift the oral pH in a more alkaline direction, which further discourages bacterial overgrowth. It's a quick way to keep the microbiome balanced.
I can get behind that. I already store baking soda in the fridge to keep my leftover Thai food from stinking up the place. Multitasking at its finest.
Another key point is how we breathe. Mouth breathing can dry out the mouth, reducing saliva flow. Saliva is crucial for maintaining the right bacterial balance.
So if your mouth is always open, maybe because you have allergies or sinus problems, you risk letting your mouth environment dry out. Then the beneficial bacteria lack the moisture they need, correct?
Precisely. That dryness can tip the scales in favor of pathogenic bacteria. So it's good to find ways to keep the nasal passages clear and breathe through the nose. A bit more saliva can do wonders for microbial harmony.
And of course, there's the standard advice that's so standard we almost forget to do it: brushing and flossing.
Indeed. Twice-a-day brushing, careful attention to the gum line, and daily flossing help reduce the stowaways that cause gum disease. That's especially important given the link between gum disease bacteria and brain inflammation.
Which leads us right back to that terrifying image of microbes sneaking into the bloodstream and heading for the brain. I'll floss more diligently just to avoid that mental picture.
It's amazing how a little knowledge can inspire better oral hygiene. Finally, if someone needs a dentist, Dr. Mercola suggests a biological dentist. Someone who sees oral health as part of overall health, and who stays updated on safe removal of mercury fillings and so forth.
Yes, biological dentists focus on approaches that don't sabotage the rest of your body. Makes sense that you'd want a dentist who understands how mouth interventions can ripple out to your heart, brain, and beyond.
One of their advantages is evaluating materials and techniques to ensure they aren't introducing new toxins or messing up that crucial bacterial balance.
So, in summary, nitrate-rich veggies for nitric oxide support, cut down sugar so harmful bacteria won't throw a party, brush and floss like you actually care, consider oil pulling for deeper cleaning, breathe through your nose to maintain saliva, avoid antibacterial mouthwash that wipes out the good guys, and for extra credit, find a biological dentist.
You nailed it. It's astonishing that something as mundane as how we brush or how we breathe could influence cognitive function decades down the line. It's a bit humbling to think that the path to a healthy brain starts in the mouth.
Humbling indeed, but also hopeful. Because brushing our teeth is something we can do daily without needing a complicated prescription or advanced technology. We just have to do it properly.
And consistently. Everyone's always talking about how to train our brains. Maybe part of that training is training ourselves to maintain an oral environment that fosters good bacteria.
The age-old refrain, prevention is better than cure, and apparently it's also better than losing our car keys 10 times a day. Let's talk a little about how nitric oxide ties it all together. Why is NO so important for cognitive health?
Because nitric oxide is crucial for vasodilation. It helps widen blood vessels, ensuring your brain gets steady blood flow. When levels of nitric oxide drop, you risk hypertension, reduced blood supply, and the kind of cellular stress that can accelerate cognitive decline.
So, the mouth is step one in that pipeline. If the beneficial bacteria can't convert dietary nitrates into nitrites and eventually nitric oxide, we miss out on a key protective factor for our brains.
Exactly. It's a beautiful system when it works. We eat nitrate-rich foods. The right mouth bacteria do their thing. We get nitric oxide production boosted. The brain remains happily oxygenated and nourished.
And conversely, if we favor the wrong bacteria by feeding them sugar, ignoring floss, or drenching everything with antibacterial mouthwash, we break that chain.
When that chain breaks, it's not just about gum disease or cavities. It can spiral into systemic issues, including a compromised blood-brain barrier and a potential pathway toward dementia.
So now we know how a small step, like cutting down sugary snacks, has a big payoff. Better balance of oral bacteria, improved nitric oxide production, and more robust protection for our brains.
Precisely. People often don't see the link between the donut they snack on and their future mental clarity. But the science is there. The mouth is the first station where bacteria shape our biology in ways that can be beneficial or harmful.
We haven't mentioned one other detail that Dr. Mercola's coverage touched on. Haemophilus also belongs in the beneficial category with Neisseria. It's easy to forget that not all bacteria with fancy names are bad.
Haemophilus might not sound like your friendly next-door neighbor, but apparently it's an ally for the production of nitric oxide and general oral health.
Good to know. Now, I'm curious about the practical tip. For someone who's never tried oil pulling, what's the best routine to avoid giving up after 2 minutes?
Start small. Maybe aim for 5 minutes of swishing and gradually work your way up to 20. People sometimes jump straight to 20 minutes and end up with a cramped jaw. Once you build up the stamina, you barely notice it. A quick swish of water mixed with a teaspoon of baking soda can give your mouth that final alkaline flourish.
The mouth harbors so many microbes, and while we can't identify each by name, we do know how to keep the ecosystem balanced.
Exactly. It's not about memorizing every single bacterial species. It's about daily habits. Brushing, flossing, skipping the sugar spree, enjoying your arugula, breathing through your nose, and maybe a little oil pulling. That sets the foundation for a healthier mouth and, it seems, a sharper brain.
It's remarkable how this all ties into the idea that small actions accumulate over time. It's not some elaborate, expensive routine. It's essentially mindful hygiene and a decent diet.
And for those who do carry APOE4 or have a family history of dementia, these habits might be even more critical. You can't change your genes, but you can certainly influence your microbiome.
I think that's both the moral of the story and the comedic punchline. Our mouths are gatekeepers to better cognition, and the key to the kingdom is a bottle of coconut oil and a salad.
Precisely. The next time someone tells you they're fueling their brain with a green smoothie, they might literally be telling the truth. It's a direct pipeline from those nitrate-rich veggies to beneficial mouth bacteria to improved blood flow in the brain.
Dr. Mercola's work always has these fascinating connections, but this one might top the list. Who knew the daily brushing routine carried so much weight?
That's the thing. Sometimes the biggest changes come from the simplest daily habits. Drink water, eat greens, floss, brush, breathe through your nose, skip the antibacterial rinse, swirl with coconut oil, all to keep your memory crisp.
That's a good reason to grin, or at least to show your dentist how you've upped your game.
Good point. And if that dentist looks at you funny when you mention your brain health, maybe it's time to find a biological dentist who gets it.
Exactly. So let's wrap up here. We've learned that the mouth, for all its complexities, is a gateway to cognitive well-being. The beneficial microbes produce nitric oxide and keep brain function humming, while the harmful ones can start a chain reaction that spells trouble.
And we have enough control over that microbial environment to tilt the balance in our favor. That's empowering.
So, folks, remember, every time you skip the sugar, munch on that beet salad, or swirl a spoonful of coconut oil in your mouth, you're casting a vote for better brain health.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this installment of Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. We hope you'll never look at your toothbrush or your jar of coconut oil the same way again.
That's it from us. Keep those microbes happily employed and your neurons fully engaged. From the mouth to the mind, it's a short trip. So make it a healthy one. Until next time, stay curious, stay smiling, and keep the good bacteria thriving.